Hi guys, and welcome back to Offgrid and Connected, a podcast dedicated to off-grid building, humanitarianism, and community. That's the connected part. I've just got back from Japan a few days ago. We had a great time and built a wonderful house in wonderful company for a wonderful person, Tomo, a great client. There was an academy there, so about 50 students all learnt and built and created a community really quickly, which always seems to happen on these builds. That's something we talk about a little bit on this podcast, which I'm delighted to say is with Mike Reynolds, who needs very little introduction on an off-grid podcast. He was the founder of Earthships, and his bio and loads of links to other material is in the show notes. So I'm not going to go too far into it. But my aim on this conversation was to have and talk about things that aren't the norm for him. And I think we probably did that. No questions about can walls, no questions about tyres. Just trying to figure out or explore his quite unique mind. He's not only an architect with a vision for how we could live better and how we could build better. He's someone who communicates that vision very clearly. He's full of analogy, full of anecdotes, and it was just great to spend a little bit of time. So thank you to him for taking the time to speak. Bear in mind, we start a little bit slowly. Frustratingly, we'd had a lot of conversation in the car and as we ate some sushi beforehand. So we repeat a couple of ideas that I really loved from those conversations, and they may not be quite as fresh as they were. But with all said and done, it was just an absolute pleasure and my first live podcast, so I hope to do more of those. So stay tuned and do support us if you can, because it really helps. Hosting costs, microphone costs, etc., etc. You know the score. So any help is really appreciated, but none of it hurts. So anything you can give, great. One more thing before we start, and that's that there's a very likely possibility, or probability I should say really, of a build for a young children's creche, preschool in Cape Town coming up, and that will be in May. The dates are not fixed yet, but it's going to be a course. So if you know anyone who wants to learn a lot of the off-grid building, natural building techniques, as well as some theory, sign up to the newsletter and I'll have more information about that. But do get the word out. It's going to be probably 4 weeks and we're going to cover a lot of material, and I'll be posting about that when we have more information. But just wanted to let you know that there's that possibility, and news will come via the newsletter or probably on future episodes. Right, I bring you Michael Reynolds. We've talked all night really, haven't we? So it's hard to begin somewhere. I said hesitated between going in at the beginning, Kentucky beginning, or what we're doing here and now. Take your pick. I mean, right now we're in Japan. We're building a beautiful building. But why we're doing it, maybe, I know you've said this to me tonight, but I love that story about what we're doing in general, looking for a bit of light. Is that too deep to go into?
No, I mean, that's how the way I define, after doing this for 50 years and having people ask me all kinds of questions about why and what and how did I invent this, or why do I keep going, or why haven't I committed suicide, or all that bullshit, I end up thinking about what it is that I'm doing, other than just staying alive on this planet like everybody else and living. And so, yeah, I make the analogy in my head of a subway with 70 people, and the tunnel collapses and the subway stops and 70 people are trapped in total, pitch black, can't see your hand in front of your face, darkness. And this image has come to me in response to being asked the question so many times of what I'm doing and having labels put on me and all kinds of other things. And so I've definitely had to come up with a definition of it for myself, I guess. So anyway, I'm in this dark, collapsed subway tunnel, and it's pitch black, and there's a bunch of people there, 70 people, and I look over and see the teeniest little spot of light. And in pitch blackness, there's nothing else. So I go over there, and instead of freaking out and talking to people and panicking and whatever, I just go over there and get close to it and try to pull some other rubble and rocks and stuff away from it. And it gets a teeny bit bigger. And I do keep doing it, and it gets a teeny bit bigger. And then people start coming over and helping me pull the rubble away from the teeny little shaft of light. That's kind of what's going on. I didn't invent the light. I didn't create the light. I looked over and saw the light like anybody else could have done. And in a pitch black, buried tunnel situation, light seems to be a pretty good fucking option. So I chose to go to that option. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't solicit anybody. I didn't sales pitch anybody. I just did it. And people came and helped me pull the rocks away from the light. And, you know, that doesn't make me any different than any of them. And they're helping me. And I think that's the situation. That's the analogy for what I'm doing. And hell, some of them can pull the rocks away faster and better than me. And some of them may have ideas of how to pull them away better.
So that light, the tiniest speck, and the first time you started to excavate, what form was that? Was that the cairn building? Was that what first form do you think it came? Like even before an action, what was the form that it came in?
Well, it probably did start back even in college. I started talking about things, which in my way of thinking is, with this analogy, is I started pulling the rubble away from the light probably 50 years ago. And there were people down there that said, why are you moving around, eating up the oxygen or whatever, you know. There was criticism and condemnation and everything always. But it didn't, you know, it didn't disturb me, because here's the thing. People ask you, what is your conviction to this? What is driving you? And I'm just saying, light in a pit of darkness doesn't need to be defined or anything. I mean, shit, it's the best thing going. So I'm going to go toward it. And nobody in all of their dogma and laws and rules and everything, nobody's going to convince me that light isn't better than the darkness.
So let's define the light. The light is people.
It's light.
It's light, right?
It's just light. And it's just like, it's light is then, yeah, if you want to define it for this situation, it's this direction that we're going. It's going toward the humility of being able to encounter the phenomena of the planet and have that be good enough, because there's nothing better, you know. Yeah. There's nothing as good, and so I just look at that. And I don't even question it. And nobody can come close to shaking me on it. It's just like, I don't have to sell it. You don't buy it? Okay, go over there in the darkness and fucking take a shit. I don't care. You know, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because I want to get the fuck out of there. And the darkness just doesn't seem that, that cool. By the way, thinking like this has made me think of one thing. You can create light. You know, you can create light. You know, you can light a lighter. You can strike a match. You can actually make light. But you can't create darkness. Darkness can't be made. How do you create darkness? I can visualize how to make light, but I can't create darkness. Darkness can't be made. Darkness is the default situation. Darkness is, unless there's light. So that's what I think humans can do, is find light, pursue light, maybe even create light. But I don't think I create light. I don't know how. I can live in a lightness, but I think there are people that can probably create light, you know, in their beingness or whatever. But
we're in a sea of people, and we're all so different, and it's so many of us, or maybe not even that many of us, but certainly people with a far reach, people who are influencing situations. I'm talking about leaders, etc., etc. So many are not really living up to what our potential as humans, you know? And that's the darkness, maybe that ignorance, that humanness that's not really lighting up.
Darkness is. So unless there's some spark of light, whether it be inspiration, intuition, imagination, I think those are all light. I guess what they call love, but nobody really knows what that is light. I mean, there are, and maybe some people even channel light. Light is out there, but I mean, the thing is, yeah, I think darkness just is. It's the way things are unless light happens. And I think the obvious move of humanity would be to go toward light if you can see a speck of it and not even argue about it, you know. I mean, and not even have to convince anybody. And if they have to be convinced, when they don't see it. Maybe my eyes are better or something, and that's why I saw it. Or maybe my eyes had already adjusted, or maybe something caused my eyes to adjust. I don't know, but I saw a piece of light, going toward the piece of light. And you know, people say, when you got so much criticism and so many people calling you an idiot and a hippie and a whatever, how do you keep going? And I'm just saying, it's not even a question. It doesn't matter what any fucking human says. There's a piece of light over there, and I know what light is. Light is life. So I guess I'm just headed toward life. And other than that, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So more than anybody else.
Yeah, so life is watching the water go down the gutter on the house. It's having food pop up in the middle of the house. It's being with the phenomena. It's living independently.
It is, you know, those are specifics, but I think the light is how the life on this planet is. And I think humanity is separate from that. And I think that's part of the issue. And sometimes I'm reluctant to like accept that I'm part of humanity. And so I'm just like, I just think light is a way out of humanity. Maybe humanity is the fucking darkness. It's just like, yeah, maybe that's true. Because I don't think animals have a default darkness. I don't think plants have a default darkness, but I think humans do. Humans tend to be dark unless there's light, and there's all these different attempts at light, and there's all these pseudo lights like Christianity and in Catholicism and all these religions that have been crystallized, and I guess people make money and get power off of them or something like that. But there's these things that attract people like light, but they're not really light. And then there's really light. And the really light is life. It's life. And I don't think humans know that much about it. And I don't know what the human thing is. I think about the human condition a lot, and it's like, it is a condition. And we basically have to define where we're at in this condition so that we can figure out how to figure out first that it's not worth it to stay here, and figure out where to go.
So where can you see the where to go? I mean, if there was a town full of people living, using their time in the way they chose, and et cetera, essentially a community of people or a group of people that had figured a bunch of stuff out and were living in light, does that take, I don't know, I feel like somehow you'd want to keep striving for something. What is it you think you'd be striving for at that point?
Well,
or would you just be quite happily to sit down and just chill?
No, well, I mean, I don't know that there's ever an end to the quest for light. So, and I don't care to define whether there is or not. Right now, just to get to light is a fucking project. So, I mean, I'm not worried about there being an end. And so and I just think that, yeah, that's a very simplified thing to say that sustainability or living green or whatever all these ridiculous words are that people use. It is a good direction, but it's like so much more than that. It's like, first of all, it's just like the first trait a person could acquire to move in this direction is humility. And humility relative to the planet and the solar system and the universe. Humanity lacks humility, and humanity is suffering because of that.
So when you rocked up in college and you started having these ideas, you started seeing specks of light, were people, did you make some friends there that you still have now, or did you meet certain people that maybe had an effect on you and you evolved an idea with them, and essentially how did you get from that to action, to
well, like I said, if I'm going up this pile of rubble and trying to pick rocks away from a speck of light, there might be people that are stronger than me and move rocks faster. There might be people that are smarter than me that can figure out ways to move the rocks faster. In other words, once you attract people, you're not better than all those people or any real different. All those people have different degrees of talents and skills that can all go together and help make that hole of light bigger and bigger so that maybe people can pass through it, and get the fuck out of here. So that's the thing. It's like, who leads the grass? Who leads the trees? Who leads those things? Nobody leads. Leaders are a figment of their own imagination, and suffer because of it, I think, i.e. Christ. But, so I'm not about to be a leader. It's as simple as that analogy of picking rocks away from light. And yes, the light then is life, and life is how to be having a life on this planet and not be trapped into dogmas and religions and politics and there's a lot of people just do not have a life, and I think it's a right of a birthright of every man, woman, and child on this planet to have life. And it's not that anybody has to give it to them; it's that we just not have to close it off from them. See, I don't think anybody gives life or light. I think a lot of people close off life and light. Government, politics, even religion, power mongers, whatever, they close off life from people. Otherwise, people would be just like animals and plants and have it. But some people, some faction of humanity, sort of makes it a practice to close off life from other people in every way. You know, like the movie Avatar, like a lot of oil companies and corporations and politics and religions for few individuals to have their own power and money and wealth or whatever you want to call it. They close off life to so many people. And I'm thinking, let's just do the opposite. Let's open up life to as many people as possible, because if you're with a bunch of people that have life, it's amazing. And we get little experiences like that on these gigs.
We do. I mean, that opening up life is a great description of what the building is, but that's not where it finishes. That's just almost an excuse in some ways. I mean, or it's a symbol, not an excuse, that allows people to congregate and come together and be very exploratory and enthusiastic and feed off good energy and be surrounded by people who are trying to do something rather than complain. Well, that's another part of that light, I guess, no?
You know, it is. Yeah, that's kind of what, you know, it's a periphery thing. It's why we keep doing it. You know, it's why, and we just make a life of it in Taos, and now we take it around the world. It's unarguable. That's the thing. You know, there are unarguable things, and the sun is an unarguable thing. You don't have any politician or religious leader arguing with the sun and what it does and what it doesn't do. You don't have any political leaders or religious leaders arguing about what gravity does. These are the phenomena of the planet. They are unarguable. And what I'm saying is, okay, I'm going for these unarguables. I'm going for the unarguables because I can argue with everything else out there. And I don't even want to argue with them. It's not worth my time. But the things I can't argue with, I'm humble about them. And I'm not going to tell gravity, you know, I'm a fucking intelligent motherfucking spiritual leader, and I've got a heart on here, and I'm ready to, challenge you on you're full of shit, gravity. You know, so I'm going to jump off this bridge. Boom. Jump off a bridge, I'm dead. Because gravity, you don't argue with. Gravity doesn't argue with you. Gravity doesn't care. You know, the sun doesn't care. Humanity is such a pissant little flake of dust that it just doesn't matter. But it is life. There is life in humanity. And so I'm just saying, so far, in the 73 years I've been on this planet, in this form, humanity is one of the least things I'm impressed about.
Yeah. I mean, there are beautiful parts of humanity. There's a lot. That the overall effect has not been particularly good. I mean, if it was being graded as a project, we wouldn't be giving ourselves high grades here. I mean, air, water, the basics, we screw them up.
Yeah, we'd be expelled from school. That's what we'd be.
I always imagine that the kindergarten teacher coming in just being like, no, not like this. You don't take the clean, free water from the sky and send it down the drains. No.
You don't shit on your desk. You know, you don't do shit like that.
No. Or in your water. But anyway, yeah. So let me I want to go back just a little to ask a couple of questions that I have in mind. Do you feel like someone that you dealt a good hand in life, that you've had the opportunity to do what you're doing? Or do you feel, are you doing what you're doing in reaction to something, whether that be, general humanity thing or something that just got lit a fire on your ass? I mean, what was the...
Well, life dealing you a hand. The story about the Mustang, a wild Mustang arrived on a ranch, and the father said, "Oh, this is good fortune. We've got a beautiful wild Mustang that arrived here." And then the son tried to break it and got thrown off and broke his leg. And then the father said, "Oh, we got a wild Mustang here, and it's bad fortune because it broke my son's leg." And then there was war, and all the young sons were being drafted, but he wasn't drafted because his leg was broken. Oh, and the father says, "Oh, the wild Mustang coming here is good fortune." The point being, whatever hand you get dealt with can be good or bad fortune. It's nothing. You don't even need to get dealt a hand. So people piss and moan about their bad luck. People fucking glorify their good luck. And then when you're at the top, there's no place else to go but down. So just go all around. So I don't buy any of that. I just, I'm alive. Like, various tigers are all alive. And there's no one tiger that's really that much different than any others. There may be, you have discovered persistence, you've discovered humility and things like that. And you those are tools that, somebody, it'd be nice to be taught all those things, humility and persistence and perseverance. And
did anyone teach you any of those things?
Not really specifically. I think they're out there, and I think I've had different experiences that have opened my mind up to them being out there. I think all of the wisdom is out there, and you just have to empty your head enough a few times to let it come in. That's all it takes. And various things. I do think that in my 20s, when I was strapping myself up on top of a pyramid in a coffer and gazing at the full moon as it came across the southern sky, that emptied my head. Fuck yes, that emptied my head. Better than any drug or anything else. It didn't put anything in my head. It just emptied my head. It just fucking burnt my brain out. And my head got empty and all kinds of shit came in. I think if you could go around, you don't have to do it for children because their heads are already empty. They haven't been pumped full of dog shit. But a 20-year-old person, their head's been pumped full of dog shit and they need it to be empty. They need a mental enema, colonic of, giant magnitude. They need to get it empty so that what is out there can come in. So I think that happened to me.
I was going to actually ask you about moon gazing.
Well,
was that on the pyramid up and where did you get set up?
The coffer. I built a pyramid, magnetically aligned and perfectly proportioned like Giza, and because I'd read a lot of pyramid stuff. 90% of it is just sensationalizing bullshit, but a certain percentage of it was research and study of the pyramid and the history of it, and it was pretty impressive, some shit. And so I built pyramids. I built one perfectly with no steel in it and everything on top of the third floor of a building, my home. And on the top of it, I put a wood coffer, and I'd climb up there on a rope and strap myself in and gaze at the full moon, because I'd heard about gazing, and I'd heard about priests in Lemuria, which was before Atlantis, going up and gazing at the full moon on top of pyramids. They had beautiful chambers made on top of pyramids. I got a hold of some old book on Lemuria. I don't know how or where, but
do you still have it, that book?
No, I don't. I don't keep anything. I don't have anything really. But anyway, I responded to it, and I did that, and it was fucking worth it. I mean, I don't know exactly. No vision from heaven came and said, "Go get on top of a pyramid and gaze at the moon."
So would you look straight at the moon?
I would.
Eye to eye.
It would go. It would start getting there. I'd be facing south, and it'd start getting. It comes across the southern sky just like the sun does, and when it'd start getting due south and it was full, I would just start gazing, and I would gaze for as much as an hour, just tracking the moon. And it'd be cold. I'd have my winter clothes on and all wrapped up, or it'd be summer. For a year or so, I did it every full moon. And like I say, it just like when you do something, that's intense.
How old are you?
24 or 5, something like that, 6. And it does burn your fucking brain out. That's what it does. It's great. And all kinds of shit came in. I think that's the thing. I think I can't say enough about empty your brain so that life can come in. Because we are full of shit. And I did it, and I never changed from it. You don't have to do that. Maybe I should do it again. But right now, because I'm full of a lot of shit right now with all the things that I've gotten into and the human ramifications of them. But, you maybe only have to do that once, and it's just, I know that everything that has come into my head since then is bullshit, and I don't need it. I know that that's the place. That's the place where the door is open to the light. And, you can't see it unless there's another little stupid way, scientific experiment. You take a mayonnaise jar just like that, and you put it into a pan of water, straight up down. And you can put it way down in, and the water doesn't come up into the glass because it's full of air. But you tip it sideways, and all the air goes out, put it back down, and the water will go up higher than the water level in the pan. That's just physics. So I'm just saying, if you empty, things come.
Do you have any memories of things coming in terms of particular designs or moments, inflection points?
It's sort of been like a vein of gold in a gold mine. There it is. It starts, and you get attracted to it for sure. And you just follow it, and it gets bigger and bigger. So why are you ever going to stop following it? You have no idea how it's going to. Maybe you're going to end up in a gold room, whatever. But, why would any miner stop following a vein of gold that the further he got into it, the bigger it got? And that's exactly the way I see this. The further I get into this, the bigger it gets. And it is gold. Let's just say it makes it interesting to be alive if you're following a vein of gold that keeps getting bigger.
How do you strategize about what to do? I remember just before you came to Malawi, we went to, I don't know where you went to exactly, but I remember you coming back and you'd met Bill Clinton. You'd been at a gig, or not a gig, a conference or something, but are people listening? What was that about? What happened there?
Well, a lot of shit like that happens. Like, I was invited to speak. They paid me to speak at we have all kinds of, conferences and conventions, and some little intellectual hoity-toity school in, I don't know, New York or Connecticut or something, someplace back east, Upper Hamptons, or I don't know, some place back east, northeast. And they were having some kind of conference on the new age or whatever. And they had a bunch of speakers. And Clinton was one of them. And I was one of them. And then because Clinton, was president, they had all the speakers get to go up to him and get a photo op, and I got a photo op shaking Bill Clinton's hand and, say hello and whatever. So there were some movie stars there, and I don't know, it was maybe 20 people in a line going up to see Clinton. I went up and I told him what somebody in my office once said about me. I said they told me on my birthday that I was older than the president and younger than the Rolling Stones. And he says, I don't know how Keith Richards does it. I don't know how he keeps going. I don't know how he does that. And I said, he doesn't inhale. And he laughed his ass off. He's a good guy. But that kind of shit happens, and that was on my way to Malawi. I went there, and then from there I went to Malawi, and reality check, in a tent with fucking
ants biting your ass,
ants eating my fucking brains out, and insects the size of hummingbirds buzzing around in a tree right over my tent, and busting our ass, and we got something hacked out there. That's when I got impressed with Deborah's, because she just showed up and started helping us. I mean, she was when she was alone, she was a strong person and intelligent and helped us. And that's the thing, I just meet a lot of people like that help us for a brief period of time, or a reasonable period of time, or a long period of time. And I understand when they go their separate ways. I've had a lot of good people. They were still people, but they were helped me and just help me pull the rocks away from the light or whatever. Because I'm constantly trying to decide what the fuck I am doing. Because I get asked the question, why are you doing this? Why don't you commit suicide? Why don't you try to make a bunch of money? And it's like, I don't even think about that. Once I wrote something about it that was like, if somebody grabs you like this at the close of your chest and pulls you. Well, it's not the close of your chest, it's from inside your chest. Something there pulls me. I have, a while back, argued with it or tried to ignore it or, tried to overcome it, but I can't. There's nothing. I just have to surrender to that thing that is pulling me. And sometimes a woman has pulled me, but usually they pull you in a different direction. The women that pulled me in at least a similar direction to that, I fell in love, instantly. The people that are pulling me in the direction that's pulling me, I end up falling in love with them, because I don't have any choice. I have to do that. And there are people that want me not to do that, or pull me in another direction, or think I should be something different or do something different. I can't even argue. So I don't argue with it. No, I don't argue with it. It's never a question. It's as clear an issue as being in a dark subway, seeing a pinhole of light. That's how clear it is. It's like, I don't have any other images of what I need to be, what I need to have. I know that the more you have, the more problems you have, with possessions and things like that. Yet I own a lot of land and stuff, and it's a fucking pain in the ass, and businesses and stuff. But I sort of hand it off to people. Like this job, I handed off to Harry, and handed off to you, and handed off to Spider, and handed off to Mo, and I handed this job off. But I'm here experiencing it. To me, that's a fucking gift. I'm here fucking pounding tires. Yet this job is happening by people that I chose to do it, and they're doing it. And if they don't, then I choose others. But I like this group of people that's doing this, and who knows how long. I've had a lot of people I liked. I've had a lot of people I've liked, and they end up, there's some kind of a gravitational force or something that they get caught up in this. Some of them stay, but some of them get sucked back out for whatever reason, and some just, this spits some people out. And so it's like, you don't know why people stay and why they don't, but all I know is I've encountered a shitload of good people, some for 5 minutes and some for 5 years and some for 25 years.
I feel like there's a lot of vortices coming out from this one, and there's a lot of spinning, and when people do go out, they often circle around in a very similar current. I don't think people ever go, screw this, I'm going to work in a bank. You know what I mean?
No, they just, well, in that respect, the other analogy that I have, and it works good, is it's a virus. and I go around the world sneezing on people. And they get the virus, and then they, due to the climate they live in, concoct their own manifestation of this virus, strand of the virus, but it's still the same virus. The last 3 weeks has been community.
Absolutely.
And I haven't turned that TV on, and I bet you all haven't turned a TV on at school.
No,
you're playing cards, you're getting drunk, you're hooking up, you're doing shit. That's community. I think that's why people like it so much, because it's like on Earthship Island, holy shit.
Jeez,
oh, fuck, that was fantastic. It was just like, it was community. Everybody bonded, everybody got to know everybody within 2 or 3 days, and it was just like, and they worked, and it was such a great thing, close to it, but the politics and the country and the businessmen that gave it all to me had ulterior motives, but that's community. So what I'm saying is community happens. Community happens just like shit happens. Community happens. I don't make community. Nobody makes community. Anybody that thinks they can make a community are fucking idiots. It's like I can make the soil really good for a tomato to grow. I can make the conditions where it's in the greenhouse, it's warm, I can make the conditions okay for a tomato to grow. But life, some people call it God, whatever, life makes a tomato grow. I create the conditions because I know about a tomato, and I want a tomato, and so I want to create the conditions that a tomato will grow. So in terms of community, I think the conditions that make it so a community can grow, because I'm not qualified to make community, are set up Nazism or Judaism or Sufi dancing or whatever. I'm not capable of making community. Life does that. But I can set up the conditions. And the conditions are comfortable shelter, water, electricity, dealing with your shit, dealing with your garbage, and having food. Those are the conditions that set up a situation where a community can grow, and then that community is going to grow, and it's going to be fine. Maybe it's going to be a grapevine, or maybe it's going to be a tomato, or whatever, but who knows? Everyone is different. Every one of these is a little different, but they're all the same because something grows. What grows is a community grows. Every one of these fucking things. Malawi, France. Here, these things have a community that happens very quickly in the first 2 or 3 days. And then that's a community, so that's a little trick that we've learned. People are thirsting for community, so we go around the world setting up a 1-month community situation. Hell yes, this is a lot more than building a green building or a sustainable building or building an Earthship. This is introducing people to a fucking virus that will fucking change their life. And we're seeing it happen constantly.
I was very curious about that when I set up something, and people who'd come to your talk in 2014 in Milan, a couple of people came and we made a tire wall and bottles, and it turned in from a 3-day workshop, it turned into 9 days because it became a sort of, the idea was going to be to make a golf ball of bottles, sort of a bit like the candles that dome. And but I was really curious. I was thinking, well, I'm far away from Malawi, I'm not on the academy, I'm not with anyone who's Anglo-Saxon, I'm just going to pound some tires and put some bottles up. And I was really sort of I was anticipating and worrying a little bit about, not worrying, but I was curious and I was hoping that there'll be a good vibe, and there was a very similar vibe.
Well, that's
and that,
that's
the light.
That's the light. So it's the same. That's what I'm saying. This thing you're talking about, I hit it month after month after month. It's more than money by far. So if this works on a month-to-month basis, why wouldn't it work forever?
Maybe I can ask you about And you don't have to answer specifically to Taos, but you've got Star, you've got Reach, you've got Greater World. There's other places. There's plenty. We went to a community in Davenport. Do you remember that trip from Geneva to Milan to the Davenport?
Oh yeah,
cave? That was a community.
Yeah.
What do you think about the longer term?
Well, I think I don't try to design it or manipulate it. Like I tell the students, I don't design Earthships. I'm told what to do by the wind and the rain, the convection and the condensation. I'm told what to do by the phenomena of the planet and the sun to make the building. Just like Noah was told how to build the ark, I am told by phenomenon how to build the Earthship and how to keep improving it. And I keep seeing more and it keeps getting better. And that's the driving force, is constantly making that vessel better so that people can, and making it more accessible so that people can have it. And then when every man, woman, and child on the planet has sustenance, it's a better place for me. It's more safe. It's more fun. It's more, I mean, like when we went out to dinner last night, I mean, everybody was the same. If I had a pocket full of money and nobody else had any, and that's kind of the way it was probably, how could you go out and party with people when some of them are starving and some of them aren't? And, you have to put everybody has to have the same conditions. So we went out and everybody was on blind faith last night to just eat and drink as much as they want. And so they thought Tomo was going to pay. I mean, it's like somebody needed to, but it was just like, I want that to be the planet. I want last night's dinner to be the planet. Everybody eating and drinking, talking about anything, laughing. Well, that last night was community for sure. But this whole damn build is community. So what I'm saying is, we're going about making these little mini communities, but one of the things I'm being pulled toward is making this an ongoing same place community. What if none of us had to leave? What if we were going to stay here and keep building this building better and better for the next 10 years, 50 of them, What if this is what we were going to do and keep inviting people from around the world? That would be what we know how to create community. Just like you know how to create a virus in a petri dish. I want a bigger petri dish. I can get a petri dish here in Japan, a little petri dish. Earthship Island, a little petri dish. Taos, New Mexico, a little petri dish. I want a petri ocean. So that everybody can come and everybody can keep building and everybody never has to leave and life is like pulling fucking boulders away from that pinpoint of light.
Yeah. So I was going to further that analogy just a second ago. Now we're doing it because we've just moved a boulder. What would it be when you walk through? I mean, I'm maybe overextending the analogy, but once you open up, you see it, you feel it. There's a speck. You open it up, and light gushes in. Then there's a hole big enough to walk through.
Well, then the next thing is it takes over the darkness in the room, in the cave, in the breakdown. It gets big enough that there is no darkness.
That happens with groups of people as well, isn't it? It's like this sort of 100% of the people, there'll be 10 that are sort of dodgy and 10 that are on it. And if there's 11% and 9% and the tide turns on the middle 80, the light spills into the room.
Yeah, it always does. And I'm exploring that. I'm like, that's why I don't want to fucking run the job. I want to watch the light dance. And that's what I get to do.
A very, very close friend I'd say more a mentor. He started the school that my daughter goes to. Recently passed away. But he left such a trail of light, of people doing stuff. And I remember moments where the school would be opening or something, and he'd be wandering around, it'd be sunny, and he'd be looking at what he'd had to do because he had to do it. He didn't do it for ego, he didn't do it for etc. But he had to do it. And I guess for you at 4 o'clock, when you get to walk around and see what's happened that day, and see your dream manifest, essentially, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. That's why I have to have a beer for it. I get to walk around and look at the details and see what people have gotten done, think about what's going to be done. Like the last 2 or 3 mornings I've sent out what's up things.
I was just going to ask, why do you think what needs to be done, what you think about that in the morning? It's a morning type of thing.
Yeah, it's just like, no, it's not in the morning. I think about it during the night. I voodoo out my next day pretty much all the time.
You voodoo it out.
In other words, here's what I want to happen. Here's how to go about making it happen. Voodoo is, you make a doll and you do it. Well, I make a dream, I make a vision, I make a thought into, it is voodoo. I voodoo out my next day. And since I've got all these good people, I'm communicating with them and it's fucking happening. Everything I put in those last 2 things has happened. Harry has came and said, I read your email and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm like, thank you. And he's doing what else he needs to do to run the job, to drive the job, because I've given the job to him. But I'm saying things, I have a very small wish list. And now I wish for people to focus here toward the last 6 days and on these things. And they're doing it. I mean, it's just like Lou and Dan are up there fucking putting a roof on, and Greg and Spider are getting ready for their cones, and Harry has buried the building, and Mo is just doing a great job of the greenhouse. And it's just like, when 4 o'clock comes and I can have a beer and walk around and see all of that, it's as good as it gets. Mm. And see it better on this job than any other. And the next one will be better than that. And just see it growing and and then the whole thing of community with it too. And so it's spewing out of the Petri dish is what it's doing. And it doesn't matter whether I get a big Petri dish or not, because the fucking table is going to turn into a Petri dish, because this thing is fucking potent. It's sowing its own, it's manifesting its own soil. If this is the Petri dish right here, and the stuff is leaking over and going through the biological processes, it's coming dripping down the table and into the room. It's like, so I don't think I have to manipulate it. I just have to keep doing it. I just have to keep doing it. And I'm doing it. I work hard because I like to work hard. But at 4 o'clock, I want to watch everybody else's project for the day, see how it came together, and celebrate it, and drink a beer to it, and love it. And I mean, this is a gift that I have to be able to see this.
I think it's a gift we all have to be able to see it.
Yeah, it's everybody. It's
anywhere else. Other great things are happening other places.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be curious about doing 5 in a row and seeing what would change. We'd cut a lot of corners, we'd figure quicker ways to do things, we'd get it set up in a different way. I mean, it would be quite interesting to have a race with ourselves on... You could take out the staging because you know exactly what you needed. You could pretty much take it out. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, see, we've moved into another realm. It used to be like me and Deborah staging. First it was me staging while doing everything else. Then it was me and Gene and me and these other people, and then it was me and Deborah. And then, Harry and I talked, and he got involved, and Phil said the same thing, and Rory said the same thing. You need to get somebody to stage that builds. Duh. And, I build, but I don't have the brain cells to be staging. And so Deborah would call up and find things, and she was good at it. But then you get somebody that builds to stage. All of a sudden, staging is more realistic. And so that's happened. The details have gotten better. My understanding of the phenomena of the planet keeps getting better. My ability to choose a situation that will be the best, which in terms of the garden analogy, my understanding of soil to make it light and fluffy and rich and whatever so that plants will really grow good is getting better. And so it just keeps getting better. Yeah, this is, I'm more impressed with this build than any other ever. Really.
Yeah, I remember you saying that about France as well. I remember, so it's a growing thing, but the idea of doing 4, it's fun to think about how systems could be oiled and how the thing could go up, in the best possible way. The trade-offs between number of people on site, the cost of people, the cost of getting more buckets, whatever it is, it's something that I'm interested in exploring, to be honest. I find it, especially when thinking about other projects, especially when you get that question, how much does it cost? Because that's a difficult one, isn't it?
No, I can round it off. I can tell them exactly what it's going to cost on half of it. And then materials, I make an estimate. Sometimes it's been 10% off. Sometimes 20%, sometimes 30% off. I guess here it could be 20, 25% off because we just kept buying shit.
What's the hairiest moment you've had? On it? What's the sort of...
I've been sued, screwed, and tattooed.
Okay, no,
and people, hairiest moment? Other than screwed and tattooed is somebody outright slugging me. Yeah.
That's not giving them the time of day.
Yeah, it's like, there was a guy that, and see, you can't protect yourself. You just have to say, you have to stick to what your first thought is. This guy wanted to buy one of our experimental houses when I was getting funded by these fucking...
When is this, ages ago?
Huh?
Is this a while ago?
It's a while ago. And he wanted to buy it. He was a trust funder. And I said, no, this is experimental. We're going to rent it. You don't want to buy it. Came back. Please sell me this house. I love it. Came back. Oh, please. So I said, okay. And I made him sign off. It's an experimental house, blah, blah, blah. He bought it. He's a trust funder. He wanted it. Calls me up a couple months later. I go down to his door, knock on his door. It's got a window in it, and I see him running toward the door down his greenhouse hallway. He flings open the door and punches me out.
You're joking.
And, I don't know, I guess it was 30 years ago or something. And I'm always pounding tires, but then I was probably pounding more, and you don't really want to punch me out. So he punched me out, and I didn't hurt him. I just ripped his shirt off. I remember seeing the buttons fly off of his shirt as I ripped his shirt off and threw him on the ground by his shirt, I guess. I don't know.
Punched me out? What does that mean? Is that American term?
Slugged me.
He just
bam.
Gave you bam.
Opened the door and bam. And so I just ripped his shirt off and threw him on the ground. And I wasn't mad or anything. I wasn't intending to hurt him. And I just said, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? And he told me, he said, come look, I'll show you. So I said, okay, I'll let him up. We went down to his kitchen, which is in the greenhouse. He had a family heirloom Royal typewriter. He was a writer. He was trying to be a writer.
Trying to be a writer.
And it had a bunch of plastic on it, and the plastic melted. His family heirloom typewriter melted.
This is the melted typewriter. Because it was too warm. Was it in winter?
It was hot. It would have killed a baby. Yeah, it would have killed a baby. And so, yes, I made the greenhouse too hot because I didn't know any better, And I made them too cold. And then, just trial and error. And there's lawsuits.
So now do you feel how big a greenhouse should be? Or do you calculate?
No, I don't calculate anything. I feel.
Yeah.
And And I'm pretty close these days. And I'm pretty close to making it better. I know about convection. I dream about convection. I dream about solar gain. I dream about thermal mass.
How do you see it in
water.
color? Like, how do you see?
No, I just like convection. That is air coming because hot air is rising and a vacuum cannot be created. So it has to suck air. For hot air to leave, air has to come from somewhere. Now, if you give it a big tube coming through the cool earth, then you're cooling the building. Or if you, and at any rate, you're causing air movement. Free air movement in a building is fantastic.
So the first cooling tube, like when did that, how did that happen? What was the imagination of?
It was just like, I got into making these skylights, and I put them, like I have in the old Earthship, I have one right over my bed. It's beautiful. You see the full moon, see the stars, condensation drips on you in the certain times of the year. but it is a heat loss too. And people don't want a heat loss, even if it's triple paint. And so I moved the skylight out to the greenhouse. So there's no skylights in the room. It's out in the greenhouse. But I needed to open doors or transoms or something to get that air to go out from the room. But then I thought, well, it's physics. If air's leaving, which it is, it's blasting out of the greenhouse, you got to give it someplace to come from, the new air. So I put tubes. I put 4-inch tubes. I put 8-inch tubes. I put 12-inch tubes. Now I have 15-inch tubes. And they are fantastic, man. The air fucking blasts out of the greenhouse and sucks the air in.
It doesn't dry out your eyes. It doesn't kill your eyes or make you sick with
air
conditioning. It's live air.
It is convection. It is physics. I worship physics. It's physics. And I see more and more in how it works. And I see condensation. To me, I'll never forget yesterday seeing the rain go down the gutters. Just minutes after I got it done. I busted my ass getting both of them done because they were just fucked up. And the EPDM and everything, and we're trying a new method with the EPDM, and it worked, and the water was running to the cisterns, and it's just like...
I remember looking at the tarps and putting the tarps on, and I remember and I was on the track of, have the tarps dangle over the edge, and you're like, just let them go down the gutter. Let the water run down the gutter and just go into the cisterns.
But the gutter wasn't in until yesterday. We put both gutters in yesterday.
Yeah,
and the gutters around the house.
So the rain came at the perfect time.
The rain came. Pretty hard rain for 15 minutes.
Yep.
Enough for me to get to see the water fucking running. It's like, here I've been doing this for 50 years, and it was like, I got to see the water from the sky going into my cisterns, and now it's gravity feeding Lou's Wom, and it's like, it never gets old. Just like a gold miner goes into his mine, and it never gets old seeing the gold. It never gets old. So that was fun. That's all I need right there. To know that I am getting more and more friendly with the phenomena of the planet. I'm certainly humbled by them. And I'm certainly not telling they're unarguable. You must recognize things like that. They are unarguable. It's not like they're almost like a being, but they're also, like I like the old Egyptian gods, the god of thunder, the god of the sun, the god of the moon. But I don't know, they were onto something. Those things are unarguable. You can argue with Jesus. You can argue with fucking Buddhists. You can argue with all the things that are said. You don't argue with the sun. You don't argue with gravity. You're a fucking fool if they don't argue with you. That's the main thing. You don't even exist as far as gravity goes.
Yeah, so two questions I have to ask, and they're slightly connected. One, and because we're talking about phenomena, and I'm thinking about sound. The pyramid that's up there I think it's near the castle. When you sit at it and if you've got your back against the wall and the inside's round, it's spherical inside, it's pyramid outside, and someone is right across from you, and they speak. It sounds like they're in your head.
Your ear, yeah. Your
and
head.
it takes away space. It takes away the element of space, or not the element, but the dimension almost of space, because they're right there.
Yeah.
And
you can hear their breathing.
Yeah. That really changes the social dynamic, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it makes you, everybody there. Well, see, everybody's not across from everybody else. No. Just if you're across from a person, that option is there. That's physics. And the sound gets in your head. And, I mean, we've had things up there where, imagine being up there in that pyramid, a few candles burning, a person laying in the middle. We had the ladder going up, have a trap door so you could just close it completely off. Person laying in the middle, flat out. Maybe 8 or 10 people circled around, some of them right across from each other, drumming. Drumming into that person laying in that pyramid. They get sent off. I mean, it's an intense situation. I mean, it's like the guys are, the people that are around are drumming, but they're drumming into that person. They're drumming that person. And you're in a pyramid, a fucking damn accurate pyramid. And it's amazing shit.
Are they drumming what they want to give the other person, essentially? They're aware of that?
They're just drumming energy into that person. Because their purpose is to send that person out there. Maybe up, like a rocket ship goes up and almost makes it out of the gravity of the Earth and gets into orbit. They're trying to send them up into orbit. But then there's been situations where you got them into orbit and you couldn't get them back. And that's happened. And so it's worse than, it's not worse. It's more scary than drugs.
So something like that got set up, one evening you said come round and bring some drums that sit in the pyramid. I mean, it's a whole story that's been dreamt and then made, isn't it? I mean, first saw the pyramid, then the people coming, then the drumming.
Yeah.
And then the experience.
Yeah. I've learned that you don't plan anything, because it never works out. People plan events and charge admission and blah, blah, blah. And our academy does that. But the real things, you don't plan them. You think about them, and you're open to them, and you lean in the direction of them. I love the art of leaning. The art of leaning is like, a kid standing on the edge of a swimming pool. He's never dove. And so he puts his hands over his head, scared shitless, keeps leaning, but scared to jump, leaning. Eventually he leans far enough that gravity takes over and yanks him in. He may do a belly whopper and land flat on his face, but he dove. Gravity made the decision for him. And that's what I'm saying is, I think that's what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never dove before, but I'm leaning over the pool. I'm leaning, and the gravity of life will take me and yank me in.
Walking is falling and catching yourself repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's life. When you keep catching yourself, somebody take care of you.
Yeah, hopefully. Second pyramid question. The story about something being up on the top, is there something there, or?
Well, I told you I used to go up in the coffer and strap myself in and gaze, but that pyramid was pretty good. I mean, I don't know enough to make, unless I could make a stone pyramid. They say lots of weird shit happened in the Cheops pyramid, but I did. It was like, I don't know, it was afternoon, and I had a bed right at the king's chamber in the pyramid. And I went up and dozed off. I must have been working late the night before or something. And I just dozed off, and I had, I guess what you have to legitimately call it is a vision. And that was these 4 wizards a pillar of fire. I keep that drawing around. I did have it hanging on my wall in my house, but I had a problem with my wife on that one. I drew it. It was so vivid that I drew it in color. It's a fucking pillar of fire with 4 various flames, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 yellow. And in those individual flames seemed to be an entity, and that those entities all just spoke to me and told me shit, and I wrote it down. And the next day I spent the whole day writing shit down and drawing pictures. Then a few days later I went back to work and everything was normal. But I didn't think anything of it. I put it in a portfolio file and before computers. And then my second, third, and fourth wife had an interest in metaphysics and astrology and shit, and she had some books around. I didn't care much about books, but she had some books around on metaphysics, and I looked at the pictures in one. They were really pretty. And I read about Herodotus beside a stream having this incident. And I went, wait a second, man. I've had incidents like that. And so then, I kept them filed too in this portfolio. And so I got all that shit out. And I said, fuck, that's Herodotus? You know, this is almost word for word what I experienced. And so I said, I'm going to document this shit, man. And so I wrote the Wizard's book.
I read that book.
And I'm doing it, it's on the app now in color. And I'm cleaning it up a little bit. And because I still go back and read it.
Right.
And the last 2 or 3 chapters, you know, they're heavy duty reading, and you have to read them slow. And I'm trying to put it in a way that works for me. Like on the app, I've got like 1 paragraph on a screen. So it's 1 thought. You get that thought, you can go to the next one. You don't get that thought, you read it again.
Right.
It's like heavy drama in the last 3 chapters. But I like that book, and that book is really the foundation of the whole Earthship thing. And yes, the whole Earthship thing came from that situation. And it talked about what it called direct living. And this is direct living. And I'm in my fucking 20s when I saw that shit. And it's certainly not 2018. It's in this 1970s. You know, when Neil Young is saying, look at Mother Nature on the run in the 1970s. So I was aware that Mother Nature was on the run. And I was aware that we were idiots. And I was looking for a better way because I didn't care anything about, you know, I remember a German newspaper or magazine, I guess, came to interview me in, I guess, the 1980s sometime. In the 1980s, maybe the late 1970s. And he said, and this is, okay, so in the late 1970s, say 75, I was 30. So I was in my early 30s. And he came to this big compound I had in the east side of town where there's an apple orchard and everything. And I had built a bunch of shit. All I'd been doing was building and working. You know, it's a compound. And I'd rent some of it out and stuff. And I lived all in the big house. And I had a wife with 3 kids. And I had a kid. And I don't know where it was and all of that. But the German, well, they were there filming and without my permission or anything, and they asked me if they could interview me, and I said yes. And they were saying, why? Well, you've got everything here. Why don't you just stop? You've got everything. You've got a paradise. You've got an apple orchard. You got a giant home. I had a giant home. I just kept building. And you know, people want you to do stuff for them. Why are you continuing? You've got it all. They told me that in my early 30s. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I've got. All I know is I've seen a little bit of a vein of gold, and I'm going to keep going. Yeah. And so that's, my current wife says, why are you in Japan pounding tires? You're a famous architect. Why are you even mixing company with all these idiots? And I'm just saying, I like to do this. I like to pound tires. I learn. I'm getting to watch. I'm getting to see it evolve. I've got people that do everything for me, and so I can decide what I want to do, and then I do it for them. It's interesting how it reversed, because I was being serviced to pound tires and lay cans, and now all of a sudden I'm servicing, and the reason I'm servicing is because servicing is mindless. And I can have the rest of my mind available to look at the details on the building and think of how many screws and think of why we should add more screws and how this detail should be done and blah, blah, blah. And it's fantastic. So I'm just like getting to do that. And I am happy doing that. And I don't really have to explain it. I guess I do to my wife and whatever, but I'm happy doing that. And there's still people that, don't appreciate it or whatever. And I'm not all things to all people, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just have to say thanks for the conversation. Obviously, like many people out there, I'm delighted you did that stuff and have created a space for these mini communities to happen and for us to get together and to meet friends and to, create a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm not going to keep us on all night, but anything you'd like to say just for the record, or is there anything that niggles or any repeated things where you don't have the space to just express one thing, or anything you'd like to ask people to do, or come and join a build, do a thing? Is there anything? Yeah, anything at all?
No.
Great. Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Before you go, or rather immediately after you've gone, please go down to iTunes, leave a review, help us grow, get more guests, raise more money for projects. We have other projects coming up. You can find news about those on offgrid.vision, where you can also get access to other shows and some phenomenal t-shirts which go towards, the profit of which goes towards new projects. If you have any requests for someone to come on the show, do let me know via the site. Until next time, thanks for listening and see you soon.